You know what's funny? People think power is loud. They think the strongest person in the room is the one making threats, showing off, flexing, talking big. They think intimidation looks like anger, like aggression, like chaos. But the real monsters, the real strategists, they don't make noise. They make calculations. See, while everybody else was busy reacting, explaining themselves, chasing approval, and showing their cards, you sat back. You watched. You listened. You learned every weakness in the room without saying a word. And now they're confused. Because they can't read you. They can't predict you. They can't manipulate you. Every move you make feels deliberate. Every silence feels dangerous. Every reaction they expected from you never came. That's why they're staring. That's why they're whispering. That's why they're creating theories. Some say you're cold. Some say you're ruthless. Some say you've got military training. And at this point, the rumors have gotten so wild. They're joking that the CIA wants to know where you learned this level of discipline. But here's the punchline. You didn't become dangerous because you learned how to attack. You became dangerous because you learned how not to react. Because the moment you stop giving people access to your emotions, the moment you stop explaining your intentions, the moment you stop seeking validation from the crowd, you become a mystery. And nothing terrifies people more than a mystery they can't control. So tonight, we're going deep into the psychology of silent power, emotional discipline, and the kind of presence that makes people wonder if you're playing chess while they're still trying to understand the rules. Let's begin. Most people underestimate silence because they live in a world addicted to noise. Everywhere you look, people are talking, posting, explaining, defending, arguing, and trying to prove something. They believe that whoever speaks the most controls the situation. They think influence comes from volume. They think respect comes from making sure everyone hears their opinion. But that's exactly why so many people lose power without even realizing it. Every unnecessary word reveals information. Every emotional reaction exposes a weakness. Every desperate explanation gives someone else a map to your mind. The average person feels uncomfortable with silence. When a conversation becomes quiet, they rush to fill the gap. When someone misunderstands them, they immediately try to correct the misunderstanding. When they are challenged, they feel compelled to defend themselves. They treat silence like a weakness because they fear what people might think if they say nothing. What they don't understand is that silence often creates more pressure than words ever could. Think about it. When someone insults you and you instantly react, you've handed them control. They now know exactly which buttons to push. They know how to get a response. They know how to affect your emotions. But when you remain calm, when you refuse to react the way they expected, something strange happens. The power shifts. Suddenly they become uncertain. Suddenly they start wondering whether their attack worked. They begin questioning themselves because you didn't give them the reaction they were looking for. Silence forces people to face their own thoughts. It creates space where assumptions grow. It creates uncertainty. Human beings hate uncertainty. They would rather hear a harsh truth than be left wondering. That's why a person who can remain silent under pressure often appears far more powerful than a person who constantly explains themselves. Silence suggests confidence. It suggests self-control. It suggests that you don't need approval from anyone in the room. The most disciplined individuals understand that not every battle deserves a response. They know that arguing with every critic is a waste of energy. They know that defending themselves against every accusation only keeps them trapped in other people's games. Instead, they focus on their actions. While others are busy making announcements, they are making progress. While others are seeking attention, they are building results. While others are talking about what they plan to do, they are already doing it. There is also something deeply unsettling about a person who remains composed when everyone expects them to break. Most people operate on predictable patterns. Push them hard enough, and they explode. Criticize them, and they defend themselves. Ignore them, and they seek attention. But when someone refuses to follow those patterns, they become difficult to control. They become difficult to read, and people naturally become cautious around what they cannot predict. Silence is not about fear. It is not about weakness. It is not about avoiding confrontation. True silence is a choice. It is the decision to remain in control when emotions are demanding an immediate response. It is the ability to sit comfortably with uncertainty while everyone else panics. It is the discipline to understand that your energy is valuable and that not everyone deserves access to it. In a world where people constantly reveal themselves through endless noise, the person who masters silence possesses something rare, something intimidating, and something incredibly powerful. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that power comes from physical strength, status, money, or influence. While those things can certainly create advantages, they are not what truly determines who controls a situation. The greatest source of power often comes from something much less visible: emotional control. Most people spend their lives being controlled by emotions they barely understand. Their mood determines their actions. Their anger determines their decisions. Their fear determines their limits. Their need for validation determines their behavior. Because of this, they become predictable. Predictability is dangerous because it gives other people a roadmap to your mind. The moment someone knows exactly how you will react, they gain leverage over you. They know which words will upset you. They know what will make you defensive. They know how to provoke you into making mistakes. Many people don't realize that manipulation becomes easy when emotions are left unchecked. A person who cannot control their reactions is constantly handing power away without noticing it. This is why emotional discipline creates such a powerful advantage. When you learn to manage your emotions instead of being ruled by them, you break the patterns people expect. Suddenly, criticism no longer gets the reaction they wanted. Provocation no longer works. Attempts to trigger insecurity fail. People begin to lose confidence in their ability to predict you, because the emotional buttons they used to press no longer produce the same results. Most individuals react immediately. They feel something and instantly express it. They get angry and show it. They feel offended and announce it. They become frustrated and let everyone know. The problem is that immediate reactions often serve emotions rather than intelligence. Emotions are valuable signals, but they are terrible masters. They can exaggerate threats, distort reality, and push people toward decisions they later regret. Emotional control creates space between feeling and action. In that space, clarity begins to appear. A disciplined person still experiences anger, disappointment, fear, and frustration. The difference is that they do not allow those emotions to take command. They observe them, understand them, and choose their response carefully. This ability makes them difficult to manipulate because their actions are based on decisions rather than impulses. While others are reacting emotionally, they are thinking strategically. People often mistake emotional control for emotional coldness. They assume that someone who remains calm under pressure simply doesn't care. In reality, the opposite is often true. The strongest individuals feel emotions deeply, but they refuse to become prisoners of those emotions. They understand that losing control for a moment can create consequences that last for years. A single emotional outburst can destroy trust. One impulsive decision can ruin opportunities. One uncontrolled reaction can reveal vulnerabilities that others may later exploit. There is something intimidating about a person who remains composed during chaos. When everyone else is panicking, arguing, blaming, or reacting emotionally, the calm individual stands out. Their composure creates uncertainty because people cannot easily determine what they are thinking. They cannot predict the next move. They cannot force a reaction. This unpredictability changes the entire dynamic of a situation. Suddenly, the people who were trying to influence them become cautious. The people who expected weakness encounter discipline instead. The world constantly presents opportunities to lose emotional control. Social media rewards outrage. Arguments reward impulsive responses. Everyday frustrations tempt people into surrendering their composure. Yet those who consistently maintain emotional discipline develop a reputation that cannot be faked. People begin to recognize that they are dealing with someone who thinks before acting, someone who remains steady under pressure, and someone who cannot easily be pushed off course. That reputation alone often becomes a source of influence, because few things are more powerful than a person whose emotions serve their purpose instead of controlling their destiny. Most people believe action is what creates results, but they often overlook a critical truth. The quality of an action depends on the quality of the information behind it. This is where observation becomes a hidden advantage. While many people rush to react, respond, or make their next move, the most effective individuals spend more time watching, listening, and understanding. They recognize that information is power, and observation is one of the fastest ways to acquire it. Human beings reveal far more than they realize. They reveal themselves through their words, their habits, their emotional triggers, their body language, their choices, and even through what they choose not to say. Most people are so focused on expressing themselves that they rarely notice what others are revealing. They enter conversations thinking about what they want to say next instead of paying attention to what is happening around them. As a result, they miss valuable details that could completely change their understanding of a situation. Reaction, on the other hand, often happens too quickly. A person hears something and immediately forms a judgment. They experience a challenge and instantly push back. They encounter criticism and rush to defend themselves. The problem with reacting too soon is that it usually comes from incomplete information. When emotions take control, people act before they fully understand what is happening. They assume they know the whole story when they have only seen a small piece of it. Observation requires patience. It requires resisting the urge to jump into every conversation, every argument, and every opportunity to prove a point. It means allowing situations to unfold before deciding how to respond. This patience creates a tremendous advantage because while others are exposing their intentions, you are gathering information. While they are revealing their weaknesses, you are learning where those weaknesses exist. While they are trying to control the situation, you are understanding the situation. Many people unknowingly reveal their true character over time. Someone may present themselves as confident, but observation may reveal insecurity, hidden beneath constant bragging. Someone may appear trustworthy, but consistent observation may expose patterns of dishonesty. Someone may seem calm and collected until pressure reveals emotional instability. These truths are rarely discovered through immediate reactions. They are discovered through careful attention and patience. Observation also protects people from manipulation. Manipulators rely on emotional responses. They want quick decisions, impulsive actions, and reactions that bypass critical thinking. When someone develops the habit of observing before acting, manipulation becomes much more difficult. They begin noticing inconsistencies. They recognize patterns. They detect motives that would otherwise remain hidden. Instead of being swept away by emotions, they remain grounded in awareness. In competitive environments, observation often separates winners from losers. The person who understands the room has an advantage over the person who merely reacts to it. The person who notices patterns has an advantage over the person who ignores them. The person who studies people carefully gains insight that cannot be obtained through force or aggression. Knowledge gathered through observation often proves more valuable than strength, because strength can only be applied effectively when it is directed by understanding. There is also a psychological impact to becoming highly observant. People become uncomfortable around those who pay attention. Most individuals are accustomed to being ignored. They are used to conversations where nobody is truly listening. When they encounter someone who notices details, remembers information, and recognizes patterns, they sense a different level of awareness. They realize that their usual tactics may not work. Their masks become harder to maintain. Their contradictions become easier to spot. The ability to observe without immediately reacting creates a sense of control that many people never develop. Instead of being pushed around by circumstances, emotions, or the opinions of others, a person becomes more deliberate. Decisions become more accurate. Judgments become more informed. Mistakes become less frequent. The habit of observation transforms ordinary awareness into strategic insight, allowing someone to move through situations with greater intelligence, greater confidence, and a deeper understanding of the people and environments around them. Human beings have a fascinating habit. When they don't have enough information, they create their own. The mind naturally tries to fill gaps, solve mysteries, and complete unfinished stories. This is why mystery carries so much power. The less people know about someone, the more they speculate. The less access they have to a person's thoughts, intentions, and emotions, the more they begin constructing theories to explain them. In many cases, those theories become far more dramatic than reality itself. Most people unintentionally destroy their own mystery. They share every thought that enters their mind. They explain every decision. They broadcast every success, every setback, every plan, and every emotion. They leave very little to the imagination. As a result, people quickly figure them out. Once someone becomes completely predictable, they lose a certain level of intrigue. There is no puzzle left to solve, no hidden depth left to explore. Everything is already visible. A mysterious person operates differently. They do not feel compelled to reveal every detail of their life. They understand that privacy is not secrecy, it is discipline. They recognize that not everyone deserves access to their plans, their ambitions, or their personal thoughts. Instead of constantly explaining themselves, they allow their actions to speak. Instead of chasing attention, they focus on purpose. This naturally creates curiosity because people are drawn toward what they cannot fully understand. When people cannot easily read someone, they often become obsessed with trying. They begin paying closer attention. They analyze small details. They watch behavior more carefully. They discuss possibilities with others. They attempt to connect pieces of information together. In doing so, they frequently create stories that have little connection to reality. A simple decision becomes part of a larger theory. A quiet personality becomes evidence of hidden intelligence. A calm response becomes proof of secret confidence. The imagination takes over where information is absent. This process becomes even stronger when someone consistently avoids emotional overexposure. Most individuals reveal themselves through constant reactions. They announce what makes them angry, what makes them insecure, what excites them, and what hurts them. These emotional displays provide a roadmap that others can follow. A mysterious individual offers far fewer clues. Because people cannot easily identify emotional triggers, they become uncertain. They cannot predict how the person will respond, what they are thinking, or what they truly want. Uncertainty has a unique psychological effect. Human beings prefer certainty, even when the certainty is negative. They would rather know exactly where they stand than wonder. When certainty is unavailable, the mind works overtime searching for answers. This is why mystery often commands attention without asking for it. A person does not need to seek the spotlight when curiosity naturally brings the spotlight to them. People become interested because they are trying to solve a puzzle. There is also a strategic advantage to allowing people to underestimate or misunderstand you. When others believe they have you figured out, they often become careless. They stop paying attention. They make assumptions. They overlook possibilities. But when your intentions remain unclear, people struggle to anticipate your next move. They become cautious. They hesitate. They spend energy trying to understand you, instead of focusing on their own goals. Mystery should never be confused with manipulation or pretending to be someone you're not. Genuine mystery comes from self-control, not performance. It comes from understanding that not every thought needs to be shared, and not every achievement requires an announcement. It comes from valuing privacy in a culture that constantly encourages exposure. A person who masters this discipline develops a presence that feels different. They attract attention without demanding it. They inspire curiosity without seeking it. And because people naturally fill empty spaces with their own assumptions, stories, and theories, they often become far more interesting in the minds of others than any amount of self-promotion could ever achieve. Most people admire greatness, but very few understand what creates it. They look at successful individuals and focus on the visible results. The achievements, the recognition, the influence, the respect. What they often fail to see are the countless moments of discipline that happened long before anyone was watching. They see the outcome but ignore the process. They see the victory but never witness the sacrifices that made it possible. This is why discipline remains one of the most misunderstood forces in human development. Discipline is not excitement. It is not motivation. It is not inspiration. Those things come and go. Some days motivation is strong, and other days it disappears completely. If a person relies solely on motivation, their progress becomes inconsistent because their actions depend on how they feel in the moment. Discipline operates differently. Discipline continues working even when enthusiasm fades. It continues moving forward when emotions change. It creates consistency where most people create excuses. The average person often chooses comfort over growth. They delay difficult tasks. They avoid uncomfortable conversations. They abandon goals when progress becomes slow. They search for shortcuts because shortcuts promise rewards without sacrifice. The problem is that every shortcut usually comes with a hidden cost. Skills remain undeveloped. Character remains untested. Potential remains unrealized. Over time, these small decisions accumulate and shape an ordinary life. A disciplined person makes a different choice. They understand that discomfort is often the price of improvement. Instead of running from challenges, they move toward them. They recognize that every difficult task completed strengthens their ability to handle future obstacles. Every promise kept to themselves builds trust in their own character. Every moment of consistency creates momentum that compounds over time. What appears to others as talent is often the result of discipline, repeated for years. One reason discipline appears almost legendary is because it has become increasingly rare. Modern life offers endless distractions. Entertainment is available every second of the day. Instant gratification is constantly within reach. Attention is pulled in countless directions. As a result, many people struggle to focus on long-term goals. They become trapped in cycles of temporary pleasure and short-term thinking. Discipline breaks this cycle by forcing attention back toward what truly matters. There is also a psychological transformation that occurs when someone develops strong discipline. They begin trusting themselves more. Every time they follow through on a commitment, they strengthen their belief that they can depend on their own actions. Confidence stops being something they hope to feel and becomes something they earn through repeated evidence. They no longer need constant encouragement because their track record speaks for itself. They know what they are capable of because they have repeatedly proven it. Discipline creates a level of stability that many people mistake for natural confidence. In reality, that confidence is often built on preparation. A disciplined person has practiced when others procrastinated. They have studied when others were distracted. They have remained focused when others gave up. Because of this preparation, they enter challenges with a different mindset. They are not relying on luck. They are relying on habits that have already been tested. History repeatedly shows that extraordinary individuals are rarely separated from everyone else by a single dramatic moment. More often, they are separated by thousands of small decisions made consistently over time. They choose effort when effort is inconvenient. They choose patience when results are delayed. They choose responsibility when excuses would be easier. These choices may appear insignificant in isolation, but together they create remarkable outcomes. The world often celebrates talent because talent is easy to notice. Discipline receives less attention because it operates quietly. It works behind the scenes, far away from applause and recognition. Yet discipline remains one of the most reliable paths to excellence because it does not depend on circumstances. It does not require perfect conditions. It does not wait for inspiration. It simply continues moving forward, day after day, transforming ordinary effort into extraordinary results through relentless consistency and unwavering commitment.